Hey guys, and welcome back to a very special podcast and video cast if you're watching this live.
So, sound and vision.
We've got it all today. And why is this so special, Joe?
It's super special because we are going to be talking about this bad boy, the new Drukhari Codex. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am very excited for this release, and it's been a fantastic just sort of experience getting the repetitions in with this book, and it's been just incredible, hasn't it?
Yeah. There's been something really special about this Codex release because, like, obviously Codexes have come and gone in the past, and we've been as normal people like receiving them, but like being part of the playtesting team, receiving it early, getting those reps in before it's like on general release, really gives it a bit of pomp and ceremony for us.
Yeah, and obviously it's not only a huge privilege and an honor, but also it means that we can give you guys the best information possible. Yeah. And obviously we've had probably 30 repetitions in with this book so far.
Easily.
So we're looking at this from a really well-rounded viewpoint. Now, on today's show, obviously, we're going to be going over some of the core concepts that you need to know when it comes to the Drukhari Codex. Yeah. This is going to be an awesome podcast for anybody that's interested in playing Drukhari, you know, maybe picking it up as a new army. Maybe if you're already a current Drukhari player and you want to find out what's new, what's different, what's changed, what's good, what's not.
Yeah.
And also, finally, what you need to do when you're coming up against Drukhari, maybe some of those important questions that you need to be asking, maybe some of those things that you need to be watching out for.
Yeah, because as a new Codex release, there tends to be a massive influx of new players. So, like, being able to deal with them when they come to the table is going to be just as important as learning to play with it itself.
Yeah. And I think there's so much that's really changed, hasn't it?
Oh, I wouldn't say it's an entirely new rule set, but the changes that have happened, like, just changed the playstyle of the army entirely.
Massively.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a huge influx of new players.
Yeah.
So I really hope you get so much from this episode. I'm really excited to talk about it. You're really excited to talk about it. Yeah. And we're going to go through our normal, regular competitive 40k format where we're going to be covering all the top combinations. We're going to give you the highlights, the lowlights, and also some of that practical application as well at the end. Yep. Now, one thing that I want to talk about first of all is that if you haven't watched it already, we have a battle report with the new Drukhari Codex versus the Ultramarines. So you can check that out over on YouTube.
It's incredible. It's probably one of the best we've done.
Definitely. Yeah. You know, we really took production value up to that next level, so hopefully you enjoy that. And yeah, let us know what you think. We've also got a full army review.
Yep.
We've also got how to deploy the Drukhari. Yeah. All those content, we're making it free and on YouTube. Normally that is the content that we put on Vanguard Tactics TV, but it is going to be completely free for you guys. And then we've also got this week, we've got an open Q&A with you and me, Joe. Yep. So if people want to get their questions answered, they can just head on to YouTube and get their questions answered for when we go live this week. And that will be on Monday. Yep. We've got on the Tuesday of this recording, we've also got the live stream game where you're going to be playing...
I'm going to be running pure Witch Cult in theme of the new Piety and Pain box set.
And also that's because of the Book of Rust that's also come out.
Yeah, the Warzone Charadon.
Yep. So you're going to be running some Cult of Strife?
Cult of Strife, yeah. So everything, like, I'm going to be trying to use the new strats and try and get some of the new relics in there and kind of put that book through its paces.
And on next week's show, we're going to be reviewing that book itself in a bit more detail. So some of the armies are renowned and all that good stuff. So that's next week, and how you can start to incorporate that into your army. And then we've also got a whole stream weekend versus Drukhari, and that's going to be on the Saturday. Yeah. And that's Saturday the 27th. So when you guys are getting your codexes, then you know you can tune into Vanguard Tactics all day long, and we're going to be streaming all day. So it'll be me, Joe, Ben, and also Jack. Yep. And then on the Sunday, we've got a free masterclass. And now this masterclass is going to be talking about the 4 different ways to play Drukhari. So if you really want to know how to master Drukhari, then that masterclass with myself and Joe is going to be crucial. It's completely free, and to sign up for that masterclass, to get your seat, is going to be over on our blog page, and also the website. But it's 4:00 Greenwich Mean Time on Sunday the 28th. You can sign up for that.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're an Academy student, or if you become Academy student, even if you're listening back to this later on, then you can get access to that as well, even if that's expired, that live showing. We put all of those masterclasses into the Academy as some additional content. Yeah. Right. That's all the guff out the way.
Yeah, you're going to be sick of Drukhari by the end of next week, aren't
We've got 8 days of Drukhari. I'm sick of the word already. Yeah. But anyway, Joe, now remember, we've got an hour for this show. Okay. Mm-hmm.
No waffling on.
No waffle. Yeah. All right. This is the bit I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Why Drukhari for you, Joe?
To keep it simple.
Okay.
I love the models, like they're incredible.
Yeah.
Like the Scourges, what drew me to the army in the first place. And they're a real kind of like technical army. They're really difficult to play. So when you've got them on the table, it's a glass hammer army, and any mistakes, it's game over.
Yeah.
So when you do win, it's a really rewarding list to play with.
Yeah.
So
it's really finesse, isn't it?
Yeah. Any mistake is punished, but the damage output of this list is huge. So the moment your opponent makes any mistakes, you just on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, the Drukhari, like we said, there's 4 ways to play Drukhari.
Yeah.
And there are literally 4 different armies in this book, or archetypes in this book. So it's huge variety and diversity amongst it. So I think that's absolutely incredible.
Because unlike Space Marines, where it's just one chapter, one detachment kind of thing, Drukhari's 3 factions in one book, essentially. And Games Workshop have done a really good job of making all 3 work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they've kind of maybe lacked before, is that ability. But now it really comes together. And some of those maybe frustrations that have been in previous codexes aren't in this one. And it is superb. And I would probably say this is, in the right hands, one of the most cutting edge codexes out there.
Easily. I think all the top players in the ITC, they can pick up this book and just consistently win all the time.
Yeah, there's going to be a very high win rate, I think, with this army in the right hands. And I think for those players that are picking it up for the first time, it's going to take a lot of repetitions. Like, you've really come on with this book in those repetitions. And obviously, Joe had a huge amount of experience with Drukhari, had some great, tournament wins, and also, some really good placings with, in those tournaments as well. So he's already had such a great experience with Drukhari anyway. Obviously, I'm sick of playing Joe and his Drukhari. So I'm actually looking at this from a slightly different viewpoint of, I know how the army functions because I'm up against it literally every week. Yeah. So hopefully, and we can give you a really well-rounded perspective. Like, I took Drukhari to the LGT, I think 2-3 years ago, when I was very fortunate to play Jeff Robinson at the time. We had an awesome game and became very good friends. So I remember that with, a huge, part of my heart there. Drukhari really means something to me as well. So it's going to be, I think, a really good podcast. Yeah. So let's get into it, Joe. What do people need to play Drukhari? What is the core concepts or books that people are going to need to get if they want to play Drukhari?
So simply put, if you want to go from the basics, just this book is all you need. If you want to kind of delve into the witch cults of
Joe's holding up, remember that Joe's the podcast, people will be audio only.
I am holding up the book.
The Drukhari Codex.
Drukhari Codex. I forget because we've got a camera in front of us. So you just need the Drukhari Codex to start off with. And if you kind of want to expand on that, if you want to go down the Cult of Strife witch line, you can pick up the Book of Rust, which is a really good one. And you can pick up the Forge World Compendium if you want to pick up the Tantalus or the Reaper, but they're not essential.
No.
The great thing about the army as it is at the moment is you just need the
Codex.
Codex.
Yeah. And some people said, why is this Cult of Strife come out in the supplement or whatever? You don't have to play it.
No.
It's like saying, why don't we have the Ultramarine supplement inside the Space Marine Codex?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to play Ultramarines, It's just the additional supplement.
Yeah.
So if you want to play Cult of Strife in there's a few extra stratagems and bits and bobs like that, great. It'll add a bit more flavour to the army. You know, if you're a particularly more narrative-based player, there's loads of stuff in there that you can really get your teeth stuck into, which is great. Okay, that's great. So in terms of then Drukhari, Joe, what is the thing that makes Drukhari really unique from all the other factions in terms of its rule set? So you've got You've got a specialist kind of detachment, which we'll go from. So like everyone else, you have access to patrols, battalions, everything that. But you've got the Real Space Raiders detachment. And this is completely new, isn't it?
Yeah. So previously we had the 3 patrols one. So if you took 3 patrols, they're all free. Yeah. Essentially, you got all the points refunded, and then you could run the separate. Cabals, covens in those. Now we've got the single detachment, so it is restricted, 3 HQs, 3 troops.
Like a battalion.
Like a battalion, yeah. But the restrictions on it are you have to take 1 Archon, 1 Succubus, 1 Homunculus, 1 unit of Rax, 1 unit of Cabalites, and 1 unit of Witches.
Okay.
And what this does is the Archon has to be your Warlord, but he gives all core units reroll 1s now.
Right.
Yeah, which is...
Reroll 1s to hit.
Reroll 1s to hit.
Okay, so this is completely different. So now the Archon now is going to give rerolls to everything in that book with the core keyword.
Yeah.
If I'm right, that's most of the infantry-based models?
Yeah, so it's mostly infantry-based models. All of the, what used to be mercenaries, now they're called Blades for Hire. So the Scourges, the Incubi, the Mandrakes, those are all going to be benefiting from the Archon's rerolls now.
And that was something that was a massive gripe of mine before, that those Scourges wouldn't get those reroll 1s to hit, but now they do, which is absolutely awesome. Okay, cool. So that's, in a nutshell, the benefits.
Yeah.
What else? And obviously you can still take, pure Witches, pure Cabalites or Cabals or pure Covens in their own sort of whatever Force Org you want to play. So that's, your 4 different ways to play, which we'll cover on a lot more detail on that masterclass, is either the combined arms of all of it or the Witches, Cabal or pure Coven.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Love that. So what else do Drukhari get for if you stay as a pure Drukhari army? What are you going to get as a Drukhari player?
You get Power from Pain.
Okay, so this has changed, right?
This has had a massive change, really. So before you could take a mixed attachments of any Eldari and they'd keep Power from Pain. Now it's like their army bonus if you stay just all Drukhari models.
Yeah.
And that's not just in the single detachment, that's across the whole army. So if you take any Craftworld Eldar or Ynnari or Harlequins, they lose Power from Pain.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the Power from Pain now has changed. So turn 1, your entire army, and this now includes vehicles as well, gets a 6+ invulnerable.
So vehicles now get Powers from Pain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before, like if you went Blackheart, you'd get the first level, but now all vehicles get it all the time, all levels of it.
Nice.
So turn 1, your entire army gets a 6+ invulnerable save, which is massive because things like Cabalite Warriors never had them. It's a really good boost for Incubi as well. And turn 2, and this is the biggest change and the most important change, is the entire army gets Advance and Charge.
Huge. Advance in Charge is literally one of the best rules in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the strongest aspects of any game mechanic is when it can play outside the regular rule set. And obviously, normally you can't advance in charge. So as soon as that opens up that potential, it massively increases this army's threat range, which really allows this army to deliver a massive punch turn 2, turn 3 and onwards. So that is one of the most incredible and most powerful things about this army for sure.
Oh, massively.
Okay, so what happens turn 3?
Turn 3, you get +1 to hit in combat.
Nice.
Which is really good. So obviously the majority of the army hits on 3s, it's now hitting on 2s. And if you're a transport or if you're a vehicle or a monster, you don't suffer the negative modifier for shooting into combat.
Okay.
Yeah, so those Talos, which are going to be going into combat anyway, before they'd be hitting on 5s with their shooting abilities. Now
because of big guns never tire.
Because of big guns never tire. Yeah. Now we're hitting on 4s again, and because they're now core, they're getting benefits from the Archon if you take the Real Space Raiders detachment. So
nice.
It's really good, really powerful.
Turn 4?
Turn 4, your 6+ invulnerable save now is a 5+ invulnerable save.
Very nice. Yeah. Turn 5?
Turn 5 is your entire army is basically fearless.
Okay.
So you do not take leadership tests, which is really important in the late game, because that's, if you're going second, that's when you'll be scoring big. If your opponent puts some hurt on you, you don't want your models running away.
No, absolutely.
They're sticking around.
So that's what you get for staying pure Drukhari.
Yeah.
Very nice. And then obviously in this book, you're going to find all of the different cabals.
Yeah.
You're going to find all of the different witch cults. And then also you're going to find all of the different covens. And then you've got custom cabals, custom witch cults, and custom covens as well. So we're going to go over some of your top picks now.
Yep.
We'll briefly go over them.
Yep.
And then what we'll do is sort of dive into some of the top stratagems, warlord traits, relics, some of the top units as well, and then some of the different ways and combinations that you can go into this. And obviously, if you want to see Joe's army on the tabletop, you've got that battle report, and then Joe's full army review will go into in detail about how these all these units work together.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go first for the cabals, first of all.
So I'm sticking with my 8th edition style of the Cabal of the Black Heart.
Okay. Now, just quickly, if you've gone for a mixed attachment where you've got some cabals in this, you've got your witches and your covens, am I right by assuming that you just designate all the Cabalites and cabals and everything that can have a cabal, you designate it to the same one? Is that right?
Yeah. So you can have Cabalite warriors, the Archon, and then you can have all your transports and all of your Ravagers be Cabal, which is really good. And then obviously all the witches get their bonus from their cults, and the same for the homunculus covens. Yeah,
and with cabals, they're typically rocking with poison weapons.
Yep.
Have they stayed the same?
Poison weapons have stayed the same.
So basically their armor, what they're armed with is essentially a 4+. You wound on a 4+, don't you, with most of your weapons.
Unless it's a vehicle or a Titanic, but that's about it, really.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Blackheart, now you get 1 free reroll to hit, which is really, really solid. Makes your vehicles a lot more reliable. You count the turn as 1 higher than what it is for the purposes of power from pain.
Yeah.
And if you are the Real Space Raiders detachment, that also counts for your blades for hire as well. So Incubi, Scourges, Mandrakes all count as being 1 higher. So it means that Mandrakes and Incubi are advancing and charging turn 1.
Okay, nice. Really good.
And one minor benefit for that, you get +1 leadership as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So the Warlord trait for them?
You have the Labyrinthine Cunning. Warlord trait. Whenever you or your opponent spends CP to do a stratagem like before, you roll the amount of dice equal to the CP. On a roll of a 6, you get a command point back.
Okay.
It's really good for regenning.
Relic?
It's still the Writ of the Living Muse. So all your friendly Cabal get reroll 1s to wound, and that also passes over to the Blades for Hire in the Real Space Raiders, which means that units like Incubi, Scourges, Mandrakes rerolling 1s to hit and 1s to wound now.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then possibly the biggest change to that codex is the stratagem.
Agents of Vect. Agents of Vect previously was a 4 command point stratagem where whenever your opponent played a stratagem, you roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, that stratagem is cancelled and their CP is refunded. On a roll of a 6, it's cancelled and they lose the CP spent.
Yeah, and this was incredibly frustrating when you're playing against Drukhari, is that you know that some armies really rely on that stratagem.
Oh, massively.
And it just completely, it's just so obnoxious, especially when you roll a 6. Not only do I have to spend my CPs, and then also you can start to refund them.
Yeah.
It was a bit crazy. I really like the change. So what is the new stratagem?
Look, so the new stratagem is a 0 CP cost, once per game. When your opponent does a stratagem, like before, you play this one, and it increases the CP cost of that stratagem for the rest of the game.
Okay.
And that's it.
So, for example, let's say I've got Transhuman.
Yep.
Really typical stratagem for Space Marines. And normally it costs 1 CP. If it's for 5 models or less, that would now cost 2 CPs every single time they play that for the rest of the game. And if obviously it's more than a 5-man unit, it would go up to 3 CPs.
Yeah.
So this is such a powerful stratagem, and in the right hands, you can just bleed your opponent dry of their CPs, which is much better because then as your opponent, I don't feel so penalised. Yes, it's a buff your army gets, but all of a sudden it's not this obnoxious thing you're going to play every single turn, which completely takes my army off the table.
Yeah, and if it's a stratagem that you know your opponent's army relies heavily on, it doesn't stop them from playing it. It just makes them question whether they should be playing it or not.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of what you want. Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So what are some of the other Cabals? And just quickly whiz through what they do.
So you've got Poison Tongue, which gives you +1 on your poison, which is really, really strong. It's sort of a 4+ wounding on a 3+.
Yep. So, you're going to get an extra 18% chance to wound for most of those Cabals. Yep.
Yeah. And then the second one, most common one, is the Obsidian Rose, where they add 6 inches to the range of their assault and rapid fire weapons.
Yep.
Which is really good because obviously Cabals normally rely on things like gunboats of raiders and venoms flying around.
And you also get a reroll to wound as well.
Yeah.
So that can be quite clutch as well. So if you're running MSU for those vehicles that aren't going to be getting the core keyword, because things like Ravagers now don't have core, so they're not going to get any rerolls unless you've gone for Obsidian Rose. Okay, so then we've also got the Cabal of the Flayed Skull. So what do they do?
They add 2 to the move characteristic of vehicles. So it means that your Venom's moving 18 inches a turn and your Raiders are moving 16 inches a turn. And you get a +1 to hit when you're shooting against units with the fly keyword.
Yeah.
Or +2 against units that have the flyer keyword. So it means that you're consistently always getting that +1 when you're shooting.
And that Cabal I was noticing earlier, the one where you get the +1 to the poison, they have an awesome stratagem, one of my favourites. You can redeploy 3 units. So obviously, if that's the Flayed Skull units, you can redeploy. You can make your Venoms or your Raiders, Flayed Skull, and then obviously what you can do is redeploy those, and they could have in 30 incubi. So not only are you redeploying those, because now with your mercenaries and your witches, they can go on any transport, can't they? They can sort of mix and match, which is awesome. So then your Raiders, your Venoms, and obviously all of that, you designate a Cabal. Okay, cool. Now, I want to give a shout out to one of the custom Cabals.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one in which, again, like all the other books, you pick 2. Some of them, though, are what you call all-inclusive, and they'll basically, if you pick this one, you have to, you only get that one. But this one you can double up with another, and it's called the Dark Mirth. I think they should have called it the Dark Troll.
Yeah, it'd be the most infuriating thing to play against.
Yeah. So anytime you move a unit, one of your units, within 12 of mine, or you fall back or advance or make a charge, on a 5+, you take a mortal wound every time.
And if you're against another army that relies on like MSU units, like
just have a mortal wound, have a mortal wound, and this would be. I can't see myself running it. Maybe it's just a bit of a lull, but I think what an absolute troll of a Cabal that is. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's not an ability that you can rely upon, but if you really want to infuriate someone, that's what you take.
Okay, cool. So let's go over now to the witches.
Yeah. My favourites. So my personal favourite, and the one I've run before, and I'm probably going to continue to run it all the time, is the Cult of Strife.
Okay, so what does that do?
So the Cult of Strife, you get +1 to charge if you are charging a unit that's not in engagement range. It's really, really strong. And then its other ability, its new ability, because it's lost the +1 attack, its new ability, which I think is actually better, is when you start the combat phase in engagement range with an enemy unit, you get the fights first.
Right, so your unit always fights first.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's really, really strong.
Yeah, it's really good. And obviously there's lots more like stopping things from fight last or making you fight last, which means if somebody makes your unit fight last, they basically cancel each other out.
Yeah.
So then it will go down to whoever's turn it is. Obviously, if both units, depending on, and there's just so many different interactions there where this can come up and just make your witches fight before your opponent. Yeah. Or it essentially gives you the ability to interrupt the combat for free. So you're not spending those 2 CPs, which means you're going to get those, not only a cheaper way of running your army because you won't be so costly on the CP front, but also means that those witches can fight first before your opponent, because witches do not like taking a punch. Now, have they had any increased witches to any of their profiles, or are we going to cover that in a bit?
They don't increase witches' abilities here. We can go on to the witches in a bit because I really want to talk of them. But Cult of Strife's now got a stratagem, which is 2 command points.
Yep.
Allows a witch unit, so it has to be a unit of actual witches, to fight again.
Wow. 2 CPs fight again. 2
CPs fight again. It's the only fight twice stratagem in the book. So they are really, really good at just killing stuff lots.
Yeah. With an absolute boatload and volume of attacks. Yeah. Okay, cool. So anything else in terms of to note about Cult of Strife people need to know about?
Cult of Strife has a decent Warlord trait, which obviously that Lilith gets, and we'll talk about it a bit, but it means that on a roll of a 6 to hit, you get an additional 2 hits. So it's like Tesla, basically, in combat.
Okay, cool. And then Cult of the Cursed Blade.
Cult of the Cursed Blade is really, really strong. All witches get +1 strength, so it means that you strength 4, so if you're going into a marine meta, you're wounding on 4s instead of 5s, which is really strong. Or if you're going up against lots of Tau or Guard, you're wounding on 3s, which is really good for them. But they've got another ability now, which I think is brilliant. On a 6, if you make a save roll of a 6+, it's an unmodified 6 actually.
And this is in combat only, though.
This is in combat only. On an unmodified 6 to save, the attacking unit suffers more wound.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's really, really good. We're not seeing a horde meta at the moment, but if in your local area, lots of people are doing that, it's a really strong cult to take. Yeah,
absolutely. You just roll those dice and then, you know, absolutely brilliant. If they're putting in 30 attacks, some are going to be saves on that 4+ invulnerable save that you're going to get in combat. Obviously, any of those 6s, you're going to bounce back some mortal wounds. So if they put 40 wounds or 30 wounds on you, the only thing you'd have to do here is obviously roll them out one by one, because you would have to stop rolling saves as soon as you've lost your last model.
Yeah, because you don't want to be getting 3 mortal wounds off on someone.
Yeah, because you wouldn't carry on saving, and this is something people might get wrong in terms of speed rolling. If you're playing against Witch Cult, ask your opponent to roll them out separately, because otherwise they need to roll saves for how many models they have, because anything that kills the last model, if you're just speed rolling, you might end up doing an extra 6 or 7 mortal wounds back to your unit, which they wouldn't be getting. So just make them, you know, if you put 10 wounds on, make them roll 10 dice. They 5 should die, then roll another 5 dice, and so on and so forth until you're whittling down that last witch, and then count up how many 6s there are, and that's how many mortal wounds. Okay, cool.
And the Warlord trait for them increases that to a 4+. Okay. On a succubus, so it's 50-50 chance you could do it. So she can put out quite a few mortal wounds on your enemies.
Nice.
Yeah. And then last one is Cult of Red Grief. They get to reroll charges, so you're advancing and charging as of turn 2 and rerolling those charges. Means you're going to get really consistent charges off with them. Yep. And you add +2 to your advance rolls with them.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
So you're basically going a minimum, and this is really good for, you know, more competitive players where you want to look at what your averages are, and you want that consistent reliability, and knowing that your advance roll is always going to be a 3 as a minimum.
Yeah.
So your witch move is 8. So let's just quickly look at this. You can get out of a transport 3 inches.
Yep.
You can then move 8, so you're up to 11. And then you're going to be getting a minimum 3.
Yep.
So you're up to 14-inch move. And then you're charging. Obviously, if you roll anything higher than that, then great. And obviously, if you roll a 6, you're going to be advancing 8 inches, which is huge. Yeah.
And witches have kept combat drugs as well, which is an important thing to go over quickly. So, like before, for each of your witch units on the table, you can pick a combat drug for them, and this is either +1 attack, +1 strength, +1 toughness. +1 to your leadership, +2 to your movement.
Wow.
So it means...
And this is different because before you had to go through all of them, didn't you?
Yeah.
But now you can literally pick any.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so before you could pick them, but you had to pick a different one for each witch unit, and then you could roll for it, or you could roll for it, and obviously if you rolled the same, you could keep it. Now, you just pick whatever you want.
Right, so these witches could be then moving 10 inches.
Yeah.
So Red Grief witches are going to be absolutely rapid across the table.
They're going to be really difficult to pin down.
They're going to be very fast, And I really like that for speed of play. You can just say, look, my entire army, all my witches, are going to get +2 move, or that, you know, whatever it might be, that +1 attack or strength or something. You can just say, look, this is my army wide. Brilliant. I think that's great. Any other cults that you want to give a shout out to in terms of the customs?
I really like the acrobatic display one, which allows you to pile in and consolidate over enemy models.
And through them.
Yeah. So it means that you can leapfrog kind of screens. So you can charge into a screen and then pile in over the top of it, and that, which kind of gets you a little bit of free movement, which means that you're a lot harder to move block.
Yeah, or what you can do is wrap units much easier as well.
Yeah.
And you get multiple wraps off, and obviously witches have still got the shard net that can keep models from falling back. But, you know, if you can get a good wrap on as well, then it's not even coming down to a roll off. So, yeah, I did look at that one, and I thought, yeah, that's quite a nice one. That could come up quite often. Okay, so let's have a little look at the Homunculum Covens. But before we cover these, Homunculum Covens, they get an ability, don't they? And what is their main ability?
So their main ability for the Homunculus Covens is that everyone gets a 5+ feel no pain.
And you're going to see this on your data sheet as insensible
to pain.
Insensible to pain, yeah.
And this is really, really big, because obviously in the old book, everyone in your army got a 6+ feel no pain, and that was it. Whereas now it's dedicated to the Covens, but it's increased and it's a lot better.
Yeah, so 5+ all over every single Coven model. Okay, cool. So let's have a little look at these Covens in a bit more detail. So you've got the Prophets of Flesh. What do they now do? Because they've changed.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, so I really like this change. From a point of the army, I don't feel like is so obnoxious to kill. It's just really infuriating when an army just has completely army-wide 4+ invulnerable save. That feels like it's impossible to get through. Because on a 4+ invulnerable save, rolls can really spike, and it can really throw off what you're expecting. I really like this change. So what do the Prophets of Flesh now get?
So you've got 2 abilities. You've got the little one, which is monsters and characters in the command phase regain a wound.
Okay.
It's nice and simple. But the second ability, and this is ridiculously good, is basically, if you're a Space Marine player, transhuman across the board. So you cannot wound any of the Coven's units on a 1, 2, or a 3 if you're shooting them with a weapon that's strength 8 or less.
Wow. That is mental. Seeing those Space Marine players are, paying CPs every single turn for this. You get it army-wide. And it's just going to make a really durable, resistant kind of base of models, isn't it?
This army is not dying. Like, one of the new abilities that the Homunculus have is they can heal monsters and Grotesques D3 wounds a turn.
Okay.
Which is something that they kind of needed in the past.
Yeah.
So
they really act like a homunculus now, which is cool.
Yeah, they're going to be an immovable blob that just moves around the table.
And any Warlord traits or relics that you think are worth a shout out at this point?
The Vexator Mask is still here.
Okay.
Which is really good, which means that the wearer cannot be overwatched on, and he picks a unit within 3 inches now, not 6. But it doesn't really matter. 3 inches, and they fight last.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Brilliant. So again, how this would work, guys, if you charge him in, or if you are charged, you can heroically intervene, make your opponent who's charged fight last, and that basically means you would fight before them, because your fight last cancels out their charging benefits.
Yeah.
And then because you are the player whose non-turn it is, you would get to swing first, which is incredible. So that's awesome. And then their stratagem worth noting?
It's okay. It basically allows a unit of Prophets of Flesh infantry to re-roll to wound.
So on those Grotesques is nice, yeah.
Yeah, and if you're running, because now you can run big units of 20 racks.
Yeah.
Like, you can make a real horde of them kind of going around and doing a bit of damage. It's quite nice.
Yeah. I really like Grotesques. They're one of my standout units, so I think that could be a good way to go. Okay, next Coven is the Dark Creed.
Yeah, and they're basically, they reduce your opponent's leadership by 1.
Okay.
They're a bit more of a technical kind of, all of their abilities force your opponent's leadership down. So if you kill one, you can get them into positions where they're like -2, -3 on their leadership.
And then what's their second ability?
And their second ability is when you make a melee attack on a unit.
So if your leadership exceeds your opponent's, you get +1 to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, it's nice because you're not going to get +1 to hit until turn 3 normally. No. So this means that, you can go in there. There's other ways to modify leadership in this book, which means you could probably get your opponent down to maybe -3 before you start swinging. And then all of a sudden you're getting that +1 to hit. So your Talos and Grotesques are hitting on 2s. Yeah. That's brilliant. And I really like this style. I think it's a little bit more me in terms of all the covens. What I really like is their Warlord trait.
Yep.
And their Warlord trait basically means within a radius, I think it's 9 inches.
You have to roll 3d6 and from a unit within 9,
Yeah, and again, you roll 3d6, roll equal and over the leadership, or is it just over?
It's
double check for me.
It's greater than your opponent's leadership.
Greater than their opponent's leadership, and you can stop it from being OBSEC, and also all of their actions fail. Yeah. So if they're trying to raise a banner or vital intel, whatever it is, you're stopping that action, which I think is brilliant. And their stratagem is incredible. With a unit of Talos, I'm thinking for 3 CPs on Talos. Normally it's 2 CPs, but with unit of Talos, you can ignore the rules for Lookout Sir. And Talos can go pack in with some heat now. So if you can start sniping out characters with Talos, I think that's a really strong way to go with this army. So I do like the Dark Creed. They're probably one of my favorites. I'm not so much into like durable armies. Yeah. I like armies with some tricks, and I think for me that's one that definitely has it. Yeah. So next up, we've got the Coven of the 12, is it?
Yeah. When you make a close combat attack, you increase your armor penetration by 1.
Nice.
Yeah. So it means that your Rex now are -1 in combat.
Yeah, but your Grotesques are going to be -3.
Yep.
Which is great. You're going to take, Marine straight to that 6+.
Yeah. And the other one is you can still perform an action and shoot.
Okay.
So Rex have got access to some like decent guns, like some sniper variants and lots of flamers. So it means they can kind of go in, do an action, and then clear out an area.
Not huge, but I think you're probably taking it for the other ability, aren't you? Yeah. The extra AP. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Any other things worthy to know? Any covens you want to talk about?
I'm going to talk about one that sees a lot of play at the moment, and that is Dark Technomancers.
Okay, how has that changed?
It's an all-consuming ability now, so it means that you cannot pair it up with another Coven trait.
You're all in.
You're all in on this one. And on a roll of so you could choose one or all of your weapons, and you roll to shoot. If you roll a 1, you take a mortal wound at the end of the shooting.
Or if you're a vehicle, you take D3.
Yeah, which is a big change.
Yeah, but you still get the +1 to wound, and you get the +1 damage.
Yeah, so you're going to be doing a lot of damage, but like you probably won't take it on the venom spam that we're seeing at the moment, because it could be 2 turns and you've killed all your own venoms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're there because they've only got select amount of wounds, so you're just not going to risk it, I don't think. No. But you could be clutch in some other instances. I don't really like anything that hurts my own army so much. No. I would rather just to be able to do other aspects and just not. I mean, obviously, it's you can choose to, which is cool. It's not like you always have to take it. But like it. I think it's good and worthy of note.
Yeah.
One thing I want to talk about before we move on is you can upgrade characters, can't you?
You can, yes.
And we're going to talk about how to upgrade characters after this break. So Joe, tell us, how do we upgrade characters and what upgrades can you take?
So you can upgrade 1 Archon, 1 Succubus and 1 Homunculus, and they all become Masters. Much like how you would upgrade Space Marine chapter command units. So you can pay 15 points for the Archon and the Witch Succubus, or you can spend 20 points for the Homunculus.
And can you have a master can you upgrade all of them?
You can upgrade all 3 of them.
But you can't have duplicates.
You can't have duplicates, no.
And what do you get for being a master? You get an ability, don't you?
So you get access to a new ability, a new Warlord trait, and a new relic.
Okay, nice. So let's quickly cover these. What do you get for being a master of the Cabal?
So the Master of the Cabal, he gets a once per game fight twice free ability. This one really turns him into a bit of a close combat monster, really.
In S Clutch, when you just know you can fight twice, that's an extra pile-in, extra consolidation. Awesome.
Yeah, if you want to clear off 1 model, you need to get rid of him. just throw it in, no CP spent.
Yep.
He's got a Warlord trait, which gives it +1 damage in combat.
Cool.
Which is really, really nice. And he gets the Soul Helm, where when your opponent is attacking you, you're -1 to be hit.
Okay.
So, and he gets a 5+ feel no pain.
Right, so making him a lot more survivable then as well. Good. Yeah. Right, so Master of the Witches then.
So the Master of the Witches, this is the ability that Lilith gets. It means that when you consolidate an additional 3 inches, and it can be in any direction. It doesn't have to be towards the nearest enemy unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice. So you're basically consolidating 6 inches.
Yeah.
So how this can play on the tabletop is, you can swing, you can sort of push that character out a little bit, swing, and then consolidate 6 inches backwards behind your own lines, so that you're getting or taking advantage of that, lookout sir rule. Cool. Yeah. Any worthy relic or warlord trait to talk about?
She gets a relic on her glaive. It's +2 strength, -4, 2 damage, but on a roll of a 6 to wound, it ignores invulnerable saves.
That's good, yeah. Okay.
It's really nice. It's a nice little ability for her. And
Master of Homunculus.
The Master of Homunculus. Oh God, jumble my words there. The Master Homunculus, he has a great new ability where on a 2+, he stands back up again if he dies.
Once per game?
Once per game, can be really clutch. Depending on how you use your homunculus. If you're using him as a buffing character to heal stuff in the background, not so much. But if you're pushing him forward, being aggressive with him, he's quite useful.
Maybe with that Vexator mask, which is an absolute standout relic. Yeah, keeping him alive a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Anything to really note there in terms of warlord traits or relics?
He can return D3 racks back to a unit with his warlord trait.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, so if you're running lots of horde on them, keeps your units alive for a bit longer.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So up next, we're going to talk about some of the top warlord traits.
Yep.
Okay, Joe, so what are the warlord traits that you can get access to? There's 3 for Cabal, 3 for Witches, 3 for Homunculus Coven, and then obviously each of the covens that we spoke about earlier, they also have 1 warlord trait and 1 relic for each of those to pick from as well. So what are the Cabal warlord traits? These are generic ones,
These are generic ones. So the first one is Eternal Hatred. That allows your warlord to reroll to hit and wound.
Nice.
It's really good. It's also Drazar's one as well. So, and then you've got the Soul Thirst. Increases his attacks by 1. And once per turn, when you kill an enemy unit or an enemy model in 6 inches, he regens a wound.
Okay.
And the last one, Ancient Evil, which is my favorite. You pick an enemy unit in engagement range and they fight last.
Yeah, that's incredible, So there's so many ways to make units fight last in this book. We've got the Vexator Mask, we've got Ancient Evil.
Yeah.
Like it. Okay, then the Witch Cult warlord traits.
Quicksilver Fighter, +2 attacks.
Yep.
Stim Addict, you roll 3 dice when you doing your combat drugs, which means that she then gets 3 combat drugs. And then Precision Blows, on a roll of a 6 to wound, the damage becomes mortal wounds so it can pass through saves. Wow. Which is really, really nice.
Yep.
Homunculus Covens, you've got Master Regenist. His regenning wounds goes from D3 to flat 3.
Yep.
It's really nice. Master Nementsin, he adds +1 to his wound roll in combat. And the last one is Master Artisan. He adds +1 to his toughness and wounds characteristic.
So in your opinion, what are the top warlord traits that you're picking?
The top ones I'm going to be picking is Ancient Evil for my Archon, making units fight last, really useful in a combat-based army.
Yep.
Witch Cults, I really like Quicksilver Fighter, giving a Succubus +2 attacks, which puts her up to 7, and she's got the really good relic, which you can compare that with later. And then the Homunculus Coven's trait, I like Master Regenist to getting +3 wounds back every time.
Yeah.
Because it just means that my Talos are staying on the table for much longer.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Relics up next then.
Relics. My top relics for this codex, one we've already spoken about before, the Vexator Mask, picking unit to fight last, is incredibly strong. Then Writ of the Living Muse, we've spoken about this again, regenning, Writ of the Living Muse, giving your core units within 6 inches reroll 1s to wound.
And that's your Black Heart, isn't it?
That's your Black Heart, yeah.
Cool.
Then you've got the Triptych Witch, which doubles up with the Quicksilver Fighter, gives the Succubus +3 attacks, Strength User, but it's Poison 2+, -3, damage 2.
And can Witch Succubuses get combat drugs?
They can, yes.
So they can get an extra attack there?
An extra attack off that, and you can then spend a command point to do a stratagem, which doubles the ability from your combat drug, which means she gets another one on top.
Crazy amount of attacks, yeah.
Huge amount.
Absolute monster then in combat.
Yeah. And then there's the Blood Glaive, which replaces the Archetype Blade, which is strength +2, -3 AP, flat 3 damage. And that's for Red Grief.
Nice.
So that's your elite unit killer.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Helm of Spite, which allows you to deny 1 power a turn as if you were a Psyker.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the only way to deny in the book, isn't it?
That's the only way to deny, but it's a good little one to have in the bank in case you're coming up an army that might be doing psychic secondaries.
Am I right by saying if there is a way to deny it does something?
There is a stratagem where if you deny, if your opponent perils they take an additional D3 mortal wounds.
Strong.
Yeah.
Cool. Very nice. Lovely.
Yeah. And then it will be on to the top stratagems.
Top stratagems then, Joe. What are they?
I really like, there's the Cruel Deception. It's back again. 1 command point. If you fall out of combat, you can charge again. Or you can pay 2 command points, which allows you to fall out of combat, shoot, and then charge.
Yeah, so you get to pick either one.
Yeah.
So you get to, if you want one ability, it's 1 CP, but if you want both abilities, it's 2.
Yeah.
Really, really clean. Love it.
Lightning fast reflexes, which before has gone from 2 command points to 1 command point because there's an abundance of -1 in the list, but also -1 isn't as important as it used to be.
Yeah.
And then fire and
fate. And that's -1 to hit, by the way.
So
that CP has now changed. It's 1 cheaper. But this next one, Fire and Fade, where you get to move a unit 7 inches after it's fired, used to be 1 CP, and it's now 2 CPs.
It's gone up, but justifiably.
Yeah.
Once the -1 to be hit changed in the previous rules, because you could only have a maximum of -1, like I was using the CP every turn to Fire and Fade because it gets you into those table quarters, it gets you into your post deployment zone, it just gets you into cover.
You just can't charge after it though.
No.
Okay, cool. Right, what other stratagems are top dogs?
There's one called Murderous Descent. It's a new one, but it means that when a transport deep strikes onto the table, you can disembark.
That's good.
Yeah.
Really
it means that you can get extra models in your opponent's deployment zone, or if you want to have multiple units in a transport, it's going to save you a lot of command points on putting units into outflank as well.
Very nice.
Which is really nice.
And Murderous Descent there, obviously 1 CP, you do this after the reinforcement step, and then any models that do disembark do also have to be over 9 inches away. They can't, you can't use this, come down 9, disembark, come out 3 inches. So you do also have to be 9. It's not a cheap way or a cheap way of getting within 6.
No, think of it like turning your Raiders and your Venoms into drop pods.
Cool.
Yeah. And there's a new nice utility stratagem called Swift Outflanking. At the end of the movement phase, a transport that's within 9 inches of the table edge can be removed from the table and be put into outflank.
Yeah.
And be returned the next phase. So if you've got a transport full of like precious cargo that you need to keep alive, you can just get them out of dodge really quickly. Or if you're doing something like engagement fronts or scramblers, you can double it up with the Murderous Descent. So you can get a unit of troops onto the other side of the table really quickly for the next turn, disembark, put up your...
Yeah, because you can come on within 6.
Yeah.
And then you can disembark 3. Yeah. So actually you can get 9 inches from the table edge, and you might be then within 3 inches of an objective.
Yeah.
So it could be a really good way of just, putting that unit on and stealing it for a couple of CP cost. Yeah, very clutch. And again, in the right hand is going to be awesome. Right, next stratagem.
The next one...
There's just so many.
There's so many really, really good ones. And one of my new favourite stratagems in this entire book is called Deadly Rivals. So if you have a unit of Hellions and a unit of Reaver jet bikes within 12 inches at the start of the turn, you play this stratagem, and both units get +1 to their movement, and they get to re-roll to hit in combat.
Quality.
Yeah, and they don't even have to charge the same units. They can go their separate ways across the table and to go for their perfect targets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and it just gets a lot of use out of those units.
Any more?
There's a useful toolbox stratagem called Hunt from the Shadows, where if you're getting the benefits of light cover, you get +1 to your save on top.
Nice. And again, that's great for things like your Incubi, which have already got quite a good save anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And then they're still the same sort of ones that we've seen in the past
Yep.
with like Screaming Jets, the
Yep.
Webway. They're all there in their own different little ways.
Oh,
So,
yeah, they're all still there. There's still abilities to give all three of your characters a Warlord trait through the stratagem. It's gone out of my head. So you can give all three of your characters Warlord traits through the Alliance of Agony. So obviously your Archon still has to be your Warlord, but then obviously the Succubus and the Homunculus can get those. But it doesn't include name characters. And there's also another 1 command point stratagem which allows you to give one other character a Warlord trait. So if you're running 2 Archons, for instance.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then any other sort of stratagems in there that, maybe for those Coven players that are, a good pick for them?
There's one which allows you to reroll to wounds in combat, which is really, really nice. It's called the Torturer's Craft. It's 1 CP if it's on a unit of Rax, and it's 2 CP if it's on a unit of Grotesques or Talos, because obviously their damage output is so much higher.
Yeah.
It's really, really worth it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, it's brilliant stratagem. Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. So what's next?
Yeah. So next up, we're on to our top units.
Do you want to go first?
I can do.
Go on. You pick one, I'll go one.
All right then. So my big winner for this codex, and they didn't receive much love in the last book, and that's Hellions.
Ooh.
Massive improvement.
Okay. Infantry,
jump, 12-inch movement. They're now toughness 4. They've now got 2 wounds.
So extra toughness,
yeah,
extra wound, and then what's their damage output like?
So they've got 3 attacks. They've got combat drugs, so you can bump that up to 4. They get -1 AP on their weapons, and their damage too. There's one thing actually we haven't spoken about, kind of passed over at the beginning. There's a new special rule.
A new one?
Another new special rule called Blade Artists. We didn't cover this, and this is really important for witches and for the Hellions. The whole Drukhari army has it, and this includes vehicles. On the roll of a 6 to wound, increases the AP of your weapon by 1.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So going into the important units, this is quite important, because Hellions means they put out a whole load of attacks, and for every 6 you roll, -2 AP, which makes them really, really efficient versus Space Marines.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Anything with 2 wounds, they're going to carve through.
And obviously in all the games that we've played, it does pop up a lot.
Yeah.
It really does. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go with some sort of, out there picks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I really like the Beastmaster.
He is actually really good.
So the Beastmaster now, for me, I just really like good utility piece.
Yeah.
Beasts are... So Drukhari, funny you should actually know this. Drukhari were my first ever army I ever bought for 40k.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they're the weird, like, podgy, pointy models, like from back in the day.
Yeah, Metal Witches, the lot.
Yeah.
And I used to have a pack of the Beasts.
Yep.
Okay. And I used to have the Beastmaster. But I really like him with the Clawned Fiends, is it?
Yep. It's strength and toughness 5 now.
Yeah, they've got a boatload of attacks, 5 attacks base, toughness 5, 4 or 5 wounds.
Yeah.
It's 25 points a model. They move 10, but the Beastmaster gives them reroll 1s to hit and also advance in charge.
It's incredible.
It's good. And I think for me, having this unit at the back, I can take up to 6 of these models. And as soon as I lose a wound on the unit, I get an additional attack per model.
Yeah.
So the unit could be putting out 36 attacks, and I could just have this, block of really tough, multiple wounds in a unit. And in the back, good mobility. And I could actually really see this pairing with one of my other favorite units, which I'm going to cover next.
Yeah.
So go on, you go.
My next one is my favorite character in this entire book. It's getting a new model, and that is Lilith Hesperex. And
I'm just going to say this right now. The salt has been real.
For some reason, ever since I've played Drukhari...
Not with you, the salt isn't real, but with some Drukhari players, from some of the things that I've seen, I've just been looking at it, literally crying, because when Games Workshop released some of the stats here, they just went mental. And this character, I'm going to say it, is an auto-include.
Yes.
She is that good.
Yeah, and because they didn't release all the rules, everyone was like doom saying she's terrible, you've broken her, she's like the worst thing ever now, you're never going to see her on the table. My God, she is good. And And I've always kind of been obnoxiously good when it comes to rolling her invulnerable saves, so she kind of sticks around on the table. But now she is...
How many attacks does she get base?
7 attacks base.
Yeah. And she is incredible for one reason.
Yeah.
And that one reason... Well, there's 2 reasons why she's incredible. Aside from her just boatload of attacks that you get.
Yeah, so very quickly, I'll go over very quickly.
Go
so
on.
she's strength 4, -3, 1 damage on her daggers, and the daggers have a special roll. On the roll of a 6 to hit, you generate an extra attack. So if you've got the Warlord trait, for every 6 to hit, she's generating an extra 3 attacks.
Yeah.
And if you're fighting a character, she still has the special roll to re-roll hits and wound. So you're just fishing for 6s the whole time.
You just pick them all up. Whichever one wasn't a 6, you re-roll them.
Yeah.
Even your hits, you re-roll them into 6s. Yeah. So you're just going to get so many attacks. Re-rolling your wounds, brilliant. She gets a very important special ability. And obviously she can, like, she is a master of witches.
Yeah.
So she also can consolidate an extra 3 inches in any direction. But she has one ability. And do you want to read it out? What happens when you kill a model, Joe?
Natural perfection is the rule. So in the command phase, you can pick one of 2 things. Until the end of the turn, this model is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back or advanced.
Very nice, yeah.
That's fine. The new one, Gory Spectacle. In the fight phase of this turn, if this model destroys any enemy models, then at the end of that phase, it can fight again.
Right, I'm just going to tell you how good this is.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely just unreal. So what can happen is you can charge her.
Yep.
Okay. Or even if you don't charge her, if she heroically intervenes. But basically, if it's not your turn and if you didn't declare a charge, but you happen by some miraculous ability, like being charged or heroically intervening, to find yourself within engagement range, you can kill somebody.
Yep.
Just any model, doesn't matter. Kill the smallest one. Then what you do is you can consolidate 6 inches in any direction, go and tag something you really want to kill, and then fight again. And then what you can do is consolidate another 6 inches in another direction and maybe steal an objective off an opponent.
Yeah.
Or what you could do, and this for me, I think is a bit much, but we were playing this out the other day and I was like, right, so what we can do is we can move here, fight, consolidate 6, and even if you've got nobody around you, consolidate another 6 inches because you can still activate again, providing you charged.
Yeah.
So again, it is just, that's the difference if you charge, but I think that's a little bit too strong, and I would love to see that like toned down personally. But maybe so you have to have a model within an inch or something, like we've seen with the assault intercessors. Yeah. But she is so good for her points. Anyway, I think we spent too long on her. So my next unit.
Yep.
Grotesques. And the reason why I like Grotesques, because again, got the Clawn Fiends, very similar sort of stat line. Yeah. They're packing, -2 damage, and then with those stratagems that we spoke about earlier, either if you're going to get the inbuilt transhuman, so you can't be wounded on a 1 to 3 with a 5+ feel no pain, and they're going to be getting either a 6+ then a 5+ invulnerable save.
Yep.
Is going to be awesome. Boatload of attacks, up to 6 models in a unit. That's now changed, hasn't it? Because it used to be 9.
Yep. But
for me, this unit with -2 damage and getting the ability to reroll wounds and also +1 to wound from different aspects in this book, really, really good unit for me. Yeah. So I like them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a real damage dealer, and you can put 5 of them in a raider, kind of get them where they need to be. Yeah. Real quick.
I could definitely see myself running 3 units of 5 in raiders. Yeah.
My last unit.
Okay.
This is a real toolbox unit for the army. Again, didn't see it very often. I think now you're going to see 1 unit minimum in every Drukhari army, and that is Mandrakes.
Okay. What's special about Mandrakes?
Now they can infiltrate. So you can deploy them anywhere in no man's land, anywhere on the table, 9 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone in the deployment phase. Yeah. So they're a really good screening unit.
Yeah, or just, going on, deploying a scrambler, whatever it might be in that no man's land area, maybe, just move blocking, awesome utility piece. And once per game, you can take them off the table.
And then redeploy them the next turn anywhere on the table, so 9 inches away. So they've kept their old ability, but it's once per game.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Really nice, yeah.
These guys are going to be your scrambler kings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you to cover... Well, I want to cover one more unit, and that is the Ravager. But Blackheart and Dark Lances.
So good.
Because you're hitting on 3s, so you're going to get 3 shots hitting on 3s.
Yep.
So averagely 1 misses. Well, luckily with Blackheart, you get to re-roll a dice.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much consistently 3 hits. And then with their new stat line, which the biggest problem for them was the inconsistency for me on the damage, but now they're 3 plus D3 damage.
3 plus D3 damage, strength 8 minus 4.
Yeah.
So you get those wounds through. No, anything that doesn't have an invulnerable save isn't getting a save.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah. Absolutely brutal. And one other thing I want to talk about as well is Venoms. Raiders. They have an extra capacity now in their boats. Yeah. So Raiders are now 11 and Venoms are now 6, which is brilliant as well. So anyway, what are your follow-up with your next top units?
My next top units, I'm going to say Witches.
Okay.
Witches are back with a vengeance now. They get 3 attacks base. They get +1 for their dagger. They've got blade artists, and their daggers now have a -1 AP built in.
Yeah.
It's huge. And now they're advancing and charging is really powerful because you're getting it, like we said, in your vehicles, disembarking 3, moving 10, advancing and charging. Means you don't have to use the whole Witch deep strike bomb anymore, which is really inconsistent. Yeah. Now, every turn, they're exactly where they need to be.
Yeah, and again, on the masterclass, we're going to go into a lot more detail of how you start to pair up, Grotesques with Talos in weapon loadouts and profiles. We're also going to cover on that masterclass is some of the weaknesses to this army, and then how you can start to plug in different gaps to make sure you can start to really fulfill this out. Yeah. And then I think there's one more shout out you want to make, isn't it, to another unit?
Incubi,
yeah. And obviously you've got Drazar, still awesome, does exactly what he does at the moment. Yeah. But his just cohesiveness with the Incubi is incredible. Yeah. So Incubi now, you've probably already seen some of their stat lines, but go over it.
So just very quickly, they're now weapon skill 2.
Yeah.
So they're always hitting really well. If you set to defend in a building and someone comes at you at a -1, still hitting on 2s.
Yeah.
Incredible. Then they're now strength 5 with their glaives at -3. Flat 2 damage, and then on the roll of a 6 to wound, it goes up to 3 damage. Obviously, because of the blade artist ability, then -4. So aggressors just cutting through them for days.
So basically, when you roll a 6, you're -4 flat 3 damage.
Yeah.
And this unit is so point efficient.
Yeah.
You've been running units of 5, and again, you're going to go into that in your army review as well. You see them in the battle report. They are the most disgusting unit for damage output. One of the most brutal units I've ever seen on the table. They're up there with the likes of Repentia, probably even better than Repentia now. And I'm going to say it's probably the combat unit out there at the moment, I think, with Drazar's inbuilt buff that he gives them as well, and now getting the rerolls from the Archon. Absolutely disgusting unit. Yeah. And they can really pack way above their weight. And if you get this unit in the right place, you will just tear through anything. But they have another rule.
So they've changed an existing rule. So Tormentors before, if your opponent rolled equal to their leadership, 1 extra model ran away. Now you roll 2 dice, and if you roll over your opponent's leadership, they fight last.
Yeah, so you just cannot charge Incubi because there are other ways, like we've said before, that modify your leadership. So you can pretty much get this off on a much more reliable basis. And it is just so obnoxious to play into because you cannot charge them.
Yeah, because we played a game the other day and I thought, well, you've got loads of infiltrating units. If I just put these in buildings on the line, you're not coming near me.
I'm not going to risk it.
No.
Because if you make me fight last, you pick up my unit.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let that go down to a dice roll. So they are incredibly powerful. And obviously, these are things that, like, I love Games Workshop when they go, here, guys, have a little snippet. Yeah. And everybody goes mental about how bad it is. But, guys, please wait for the Codex.
Yeah.
Wait to see everything. And then, like we teach all of our students on the Academy, you bring it all together. Yeah. You justify every single piece of that puzzle and you bring it all together and all of a sudden it is just harmony. Yeah. You can't just look at a snippet and go, that's terrible or that's great. Yeah. You need to bring it all together. And that rule in particular makes that unit just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So imagine having just 3 Judasers running around the table as a really solid unit that can really go up to a 10-man unit. It's crazy.
Yeah, and there's the interjoining abilities between and the cohesion between different units, different characters in this army is. I don't know how Games Workshop has done it, but it's perfect.
It's beautiful. And again, we're going to cover this on that masterclass as well.
Yeah, but it's got to consider it's still not a pick up and win list. When I started playing Drukhari, I lost a lot.
You did.
I probably lost like my first 20, 30 games.
Yeah.
But then after just consistent playing, getting the reps in, just one day it just clicked, and then.
I mean, I've been taking a hammering lately.
Yeah, like I just at the moment like. I'm not the best Drukhari player in the world, but I think I can go toe to toe with some pretty decent players now.
Well, you're going toe to toe with me every week, and you're absolutely smashing me with this list. So I'm sick of it. Okay, I'm sick of it. It needs a nerf.
Yeah,
straight off the bat.
Yeah. Okay, he saw the rules. He's like, I'm calling him Games Workshop.
This is not acceptable. This is too good. No, honestly, it's a fantastic book. Yeah. And it's not easy to play. It's going to take some. And the great thing about it is going to really open up some great variety.
Yeah.
And on that masterclass, we're going to cover in a lot more detail how some of the secondaries work as well.
Yeah.
Because there are new secondaries in this book. Just give us your top favourite one, though.
My favourite one is Take Them Alive.
Go on.
1 point for killing an enemy unit in combat.
Wow.
If you kill a character or a monster, it's 3 points.
That is disgusting.
It's just kill points for days.
It's horrific because that's what your army wants to do, is fight in combat. It's not a shooty army. There's elements of shooty in this list, just to sort of maybe like a scalpel.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to pop that transport. That's where those, I think that's where those disintegrators, Dark Lances come in on that Ravager. Pop that Rhino, kill its goods inside. Because this is an army that needs to strike extremely quickly from turn 2 onwards. It's going to be very fast, very mobile. It needs to change the game state. It needs to control the tempo of the game. And actually, this is a very late game scoring army because your buffs are going to get better and better and better with your army. And I think this is one that you need to make sure that you're keeping on the table for as long as you can, because your army sits and gets better.
Yeah.
It's like the stackable rules are crazy. Yeah. And if you throw your army away too quickly turn 1, you're just going to lose most of that power output, and it's really going to build up, and you feel that momentum, and you just watch this Drukhari army just get stronger and stronger and stronger. Yeah. And for me, when I'm playing against Drukhari, what I'm looking to do all the time is I'm trying to move block. I'm trying to, make sure I'm presenting small threats. I'm having to screen all the time. Screening against Drukhari is the biggest way, and probably in another podcast we'll go into more detail how you actually beat this army, because it is, I'm still trying to figure it out here. I'm only putting a few pieces together, but I can't say with enough dignity this is how you beat it, because Joe is literally smashing me most weeks now with this list.
And it's not just like every build does a similar thing. I did the Real Space Radio Detachment, and then I ran the Witch Cult, and it was like an entirely different animal. Yeah, it was just all over the place doing this crazy stuff. And when I was playing it, it's like I don't know how to deal with all this information. Yeah, and
there is a lot to take in, especially. And I think what Joe's referring to there is obviously when you played Witch Cult from the new book for the Armor of Rust as well.
Yeah.
So again, we just want to say a massive thank you to all of you guys that listen. A huge thank you to Games Workshop for allowing us not only to be playtesters but also be previewers of this content. And hopefully we can continue to give you guys that sort of cutting edge, latest information that's going to really help you at the tabletop. So there's a huge amount to be excited for. Look, if you're not a Drukhari Codex, if you're not a Drukhari player, pick up this codex, because you are not going to be disappointed. And I can imagine so many people are going to start playing Drukhari after they read this book.
And if you don't play it, you need to know what it does.
You do.
You need to be prepared to deal with its shenanigans.
Yeah, and again, we've obviously mentioned it a few times. That masterclass is completely for free. And check it out, because we're going to go over so much more in terms of, what its weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And then again, this is how you can start to exploit them on the table. We've got deployment videos out there for you now. We've got army reviews and obviously that battle report. So remember, if you like the show, please let us know. Comment below if you're watching on YouTube with what you found most useful, and comment below if you're excited about whether you're a Drukhari player picking up the Codex, or you are you're not a Drukhari player, but you're considering now playing Drukhari. That would be really awesome to find out. And obviously, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, please leave us a review. It really helps us grow. Write whatever you like.
Yeah.
And again, until next week on the Competitive 40k podcast, we hope you have a very Drukhari filled week.
Goodbye.
See you later.